It is our pleasure to have former Canadian Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Brian Mulroney, on the line to talk about the situation we are experiencing right now. Israel, Hamas, the Palestinians being talked about a great deal. Many people have weighed in. Mr. Mulroney, I would ask you to do the same. I know you've come out fairly recently with your support, but for people who perhaps not heard it, maybe first of all you could tell us what you think right now from what you see.
Well, Aaron, usually in an armed conflict, when you look at it a little bit later, there's room for nuance as to how it started and so on. Not here. Israel was invaded by Hamas, which is a vile, barbaric terrorist group dedicated to one objective, killing Jews. Not destroying Israel, killing Jews. You talk about the depravity when they went after and killed babies and children and men and women and the elderly. This was the worst, in my judgment anyway, the worst demonstration of what the historians call Jew hatred since the Holocaust. So when I look at this, Aaron and Natasha, I figure that Canada can have only one position: a complete blanket support for Israel and unrelenting denunciation of Hamas, which is a jihadist criminal group. That should be our position.
I would ask you then, given what we have seen since then, we're now a week and a half into this. Much is being made, of course, of the situation in the Gaza Strip and the number of people there either unable to leave and the deplorable conditions they are living in. Some people are calling on the Canadian government now to have a little bit more impact, if you will, in that region by, I guess, dealing with other actors in the region as far as opening up humanitarian corridors, et cetera. What do you think? Are we doing enough from that perspective?
Well, we're a little late to the party, Aaron. We haven't been playing a major role or even a significant role there for many years. And the way Canada has been treated. For example, when President Biden organized the G7 immediately to write a denunciation of Hamas and what had happened, they excluded Canada, for God's sake. They turned it into a G5, and Canada was even more irritating than that. Canada has the third largest Jewish population in the world, after the United States and France. And here we are, a G7 member, being excluded from the first official communique of the G5. So, look, we're not look, this is, I think that Melanie Joly is out there trying to get Canadians home and doing a good job. She's a good person. And I think she's a good minister. But the government of Canada no longer has, I think, the weight that it should have, and it once had, to intervene in cases like this.
What do you think went wrong? What led to this diminished clout on the world stage?
When did it change?
Yeah.
Oh, look, the way you tell how you're doing in the world. Like, for example, you run for a seat on the Security Council. My government ran for a seat on the Security Council, and we were elected overwhelmingly. Jean Chrétien's government ran for a seat on the Security Council, was elected overwhelmingly. Stephen Harper's government ran, was defeated by Portugal, for God's sake. And Justin Trudeau's government ran and was defeated by Ireland. So when that happens to you, you've got to take a look in the mirror and say, I think something's gone wrong here, and we better reassess our position.
I was going to say, I hate to ask the question if we can we come back from that and, in fact, reassess our position, our status on the world stage, and how long would that take to do?
Look, I think we can rebuild our position. Canada is a much admired and much respected country around the world. But, there's some basics you have to attend to, right? We committed to 2% of our GDP to national defense, to NATO. The last time we met the 2% was when I was Prime Minister 30 years ago. No one has respected it since. So people turn around and they look at Canada and they say, whoa, they're about 25th to 26th to 27th in NATO in percentage of GDP. We don't have too much time for their opinions anymore. And at peacekeeping, we've dropped peacekeeping, which was a Canadian initiative. My government performed the Lester Pearson formula on 16 out of 16 peacekeeping invitations we received while I was there. And when I left, we had 3,700 or so peacekeepers on the payroll. Today we have 35 for some little thing in Mali. So, internationally, and I don't think that we've been playing the full role that we could have. Look, I'm not trying to blame any individual. That's a tough league. When you're in the G7 and what have you, as they say, it ain't easy. But, as John Manley said of another Liberal government, it's gotten to the point that when we're at an international meeting and the bill comes around, Canada gets up and goes to the washroom. This from a respected finance minister of a Liberal government speaking of other Liberal governments. That's not right. We owe it to Canada to do a much better job than that.
I feel like many people would make the argument, though, that it's not worth it, that we need to fix things here at home first.
Yeah, we do. We do, dear, before we have to fix them at home, but we also have to make certain we respect our international obligations. Otherwise, when something like this happens, now Canada would not be an influential player in the Middle East in any case, but the role that we're playing now is almost peripheral. And when you're excluded by the President of the United States from the first official communique denouncing Hamas, the first one from the G7, and they take you out of there, and look, we have a problem. Houston, we have a problem.
I want to ask you about something else where people are pointing at Canada saying perhaps this is something we should reconsider our position on. We've seen in England, we've seen in France, where governments have actually come out, and I know in Canada we talk about free speech and the right and necessity for it, yet we have seen demonstrations pro-Palestinian, they're I don't want to say pro-Hamas, although there have been some instances where that flag has been there. Should Canada be doing more to contain these, or is our position so far from what you've seen the right one?
I think the cabinet ministers in this government and the leaders of the government should be out there denouncing Hamas every day and supporting the Israeli position every day. And as I've said, an unrelenting denunciation of Hamas, which is a jihadist criminal group. How in the hell can you accept some kind of... it's like Israel. Israel has no choice but to go in there and knock off Hamas once and for all. They can't have a terrorist group next door to them coming in and slitting the throats of Israeli children and babies. You can't have that. So people are going to have to sit back and accept the fact that Israel has a moral obligation to go in my judgment anyway, to go in there and finish off this Hamas organization.
Can I just ask, with respect to finishing off, and I've read a variety of opinions on this, Mr. Mulroney, it's not as easy as it sounds, clearly, and I don't mean that in a way that it's going to take a day or two. And the thinking here is this is going to be a very, very prolonged effort. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do. And it's going to be a very sad effort because even with the best of intentions, many people are going to be hurt and killed, inadvertently or otherwise. This is going to be a tragedy. But, we saw what happened on the morning of the 7th when a 2-year-old baby had his throat slit. And then and for good measure, they then shot him. I mean, these are not ordinary people. These are not ordinary enemies. These are not people saying we want to knock off Israel. What they're saying is that we hate Jews. And we are going to kill every Jew that we see, and that's what we're living for. And when you hear that, that's a signal to batten down the hatches and make certain that the defense of our Jewish population in Canada and Israel abroad is airtight And to the extent that we can help, even in a modest way, as Canada, we got to do it.
Did you ever think that you would see this in your lifetime?
Never. Never. I never thought that anybody could be so cruel. You know, we all have children. We all have babies. And can you imagine what they did? You know, it's not as if they walked in and shot some soldiers and tried to gain some military advantage. They walked in and shot and killed little babies and children. Hell, they killed an elderly woman, 86 years of age, with Parkinson's. So, you know, you're not dealing with, you're dealing with savages, and they have to be dealt with in that manner, I think. I'm sorry to say that. I never thought I'd have to say stuff like this. But now that I've seen the evidence that it happened, I have no doubt whatsoever that proper leadership demands that these people, the leadership of Hamas, be absolutely eviscerated.
Mr. Mulroney, we very much, as I say every time we have a chance to speak to you, appreciate your time. Today is no different. Thank you so much for providing us with your comments for today.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Former Canadian Prime Minister Brian Mulroney.